Alright guys, I'm working on this new theory. We're like a culture of bacteria in God's gut. In the gallbladder of God's gut are where the remnant remain after God pukes and purges the poisons. And the lukewarm gets spit from his mouth. We're the little pocket, the little culture of bacteria after we're more than God can stomach, and he can't stomach us any longer, so he heaves. We're like the little pocket of culture of bacteria in the gallbladder that repopulates the gut or the petri dish after the purge. Some gravy. So my last two videos have had triangles in the sky. In the one I pointed out, I'm like, you see this triangle? In the one previously where I point out the magnetic field has two poles, and by the way, those are east and west in approximately the same places they were last time that I filmed them. Over the Salt Lake Valley, Utah County Valley area. And as I'm filming these two poles where you can see all the magnetic lines point towards, on both sides, there's a triangle in the sky right at about the point where all those magnetic lines intersect. So my point about these triangle craft, they're being seen more and more. And there was a recent, the Navy admitted that some leaked UFO footage was legit, and it's of these triangle craft. And that went on mainstream news. ABC broadcast, I'll include a link in the description, shows not only the triangular craft, but what appears to be one going under the water. And in these reports, the commentator of ABC or NBC or whatever it is saying things like, so we know they're here, but now what are you going to do with it? They're going full steam ahead with this disclosure project. The next thing we're going to hear in mainstream is Project Bluebeam. Because the commentators, once it's all the buzz, and they're well underway of making that the case, that everyone's talking about it, and my point is, my larger point is, don't be afraid to talk about it now. Point out those triangles in the sky. That little cutout in the cloud of darker blue in both of my previous videos is in the shape of a triangle. The one has a triangle on both the poles of the magnetic field overhead. I didn't even notice those triangles while I was filming. After I watched it, I noticed them, so I titled it Magnetic Field Beaming from Triangle at the pole of the new mini magnetic field. Like the ships that supposedly arrived in South America, and the tribesmen could not see them with their eyes because it was so far outside their worldview, until the chief spoke with one of the captains of one of these large ships who came in on a smaller canoe and had to point them out to the chief and describe them as he's pointing at them until the chief could finally see them. And then he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I see him. And the chief had to go tell the other tribesmen, and something like the 100th monkey syndrome happened, where once the chief could see them and some of the other tribesmen could see them, all the others could suddenly see them also, without having to have them pointed out and explain to them what they look like and where to look and how to see them. The same thing is true with these triangles in the sky. Donnie Daytona called it stamping maybe a year ago, and I only heard him mention it in passing in one video, where these shapes appear in the clouds like a stamp, like a cookie cutter stamped the cloud and removed piece of a cloud right there and replaced it with the darker blue of the sky behind. You can see that in both of my previous videos. So don't be afraid to talk about them now. Talk about them like they're normal. Be like, yeah, you don't know, everyone's seeing them. You're not seeing them? You haven't noticed? And just like it's totally normal. Like, yeah, of course. Now that it's on mainstream, we can fast track the process and act like it's been on mainstream for a while. And talking about it around the water cooler and act like, yeah, everyone knows. Everyone's talking about it. You haven't heard it? It's not on your Facebook feed? And normalize it. Because they're trying to acclimate us, and the speed at which this process can take place is really up to us. How quickly and how readily we are able to adapt to this new understanding. So the reason you're going to hear Blue Beam in mainstream is because once they get the conversation to the point where everyone is talking about it and they're pushing in that direction, Blue Beam will come about. Well, detractors say, conspiracy theorists believe that the government is faking an alien invasion, and they call it Project Blue Beam. So the mainstream keeps talking about all these sightings till the point where the public is familiar with the term Project Blue Beam and the concept of a fake alien invasion. To the point where everyone knows about the sightings and the phenomenon in the sky as if they were a regular MBB 333 watch.
In half a mile, keep left to stay on I-15 North.
And push it on mainstream. To the point where the public conversation is now revolving around, which side of the argument do you fall on? The Blue Beam side or the real deal side?
Keep left to stay on I-15 North.
Problem, reaction, solution. Problem. To get the public to demand that they
continue on I-15 North for 49 miles.
Demand that you prove to us that you're not just the government faking an alien invasion. And once the public gets to that point where they're demanding you show yourselves, because we see you all over in the skies, and there's people claiming to be in contact with you, reveal yourselves, just like in the movie Childhood's End. In a recent video Mike Morales did, he said, yeah, maybe they're going to use the clouds for Project Blue Beam, who knows? So him and his audience are all familiar with Project Blue Beam, have been for years, but the reason Mike would say that in his recent video is because the recent phenomenon is that everyone's seeing these things in the clouds, describing them in different ways, but more and more people are seeing this in the clouds. And it's the kind of thing that most people wouldn't admit to being able to see because fear of ridicule of their peers. And that's how the COVID thing has released us from that fear of what our peers may think of us. It has also made us very much less likely to follow along with a herd mentality groupthink of absurdities. Now that we already did it once, we've kind of developed an immunity, an inoculation to such groupthink herd mentality. And that's why COVID is the letter C, death, slaughter, ovid, sheep, death of the herd mentality. See the music video linked in the description. We all float on, and those sheep going into the slaughter. So, before I let it slip my mind, this video is going to include quite a few things. My stepdad got a download this weekend, and he was astonished at the way it suddenly just came to him and rang like a bell in his head when this concept or idea occurred to him, and he had this epiphany in a way that he's either never had before or very rarely, to such a degree it was a very new and different experience for him. And the understanding that he received while we were just sitting there at the table Saturday morning just BSing, he suddenly goes, oh, whoa, the nasal swab, it's a DNA collection like Noah's Ark. Because him and my mom had just gone to get one of these nasal swabs for a test that she has to get before she does a surgery. And when I mentioned something about the swab, he said there is no swab. There's no cotton on the end of it. It's a hard plastic stick. And he said they shoved it so far up there. My mom was like, yeah. I was like, oh, enough already. Because they want to get up there where the softer tissue is. Not down here on the nose, up here. They don't want boogers, they want flesh. If it was for a bacteria that's on the surface, that wouldn't be necessary. And when he had this understanding, I showed him and my mom the music video called After the Gold Rush. I was sitting in a burned out basement when the sun burst through the sky. I was thinking of something a friend once said, and I was hoping it was a lie. My point of that music video is that we are the gold of that gold rush that the song is titled after. After the gold rush, the loading had begun, and they were taking Mother Nature's silver seed to a new home in the sun. And the music video linked in the description shows little flying saucer UFOs taking them. Just like in the movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage, at the end of the movie, he takes his children to get on the UFO before the solar flare wipes everything out and everything goes up in flames. So I'm going to read you the lyrics to that song After the Gold Rush. Well, I dreamed I saw the knights in armor saying something about a queen. There was peasants singing and drummers drumming, and the archer split the tree. That part I don't really know the symbolism to. There was a fanfare blowing to the sun that floated in the breeze. Look at Mother Nature's on the run in the 1970s. I was lying in a burnt out basement with the full moon in my eyes. I was hoping for replacement when the sun burst through the skies. There was bands a playing in my head and I felt like getting high. I was thinking about what a friend once said, and I was hoping it was a lie. And he repeats that lyric twice. I'm that friend that once said those things that you were hoping was a lie, at this point that it's depicting in the music video. I dreamed I saw the silver spaceships in the yellow haze of the sun. There were children crying and colors flying all around the chosen ones. All in a dream, all in a dream. The loading had begun, flying Mother Nature's silver seed to a new home in the sun. So I'm going to include a link in the description where marfoogle says that if we don't all just immediately go online with each other telepathically and become a type 1 civilization, we're doomed. And I said, huh? It resonated with me, and I don't know why he threw that in there, but it didn't seem just like a throwaway one-liner that he came up with on the fly. Seemed like something maybe he really believes, and probably doesn't talk about that much, but it slipped out so naturally and just rolls right off the end of his tongue. I came up with a better understanding of the petri dish. Something I've said before, where we all make a list of 10 other people that we would like to be with during this reset. And where your list matches up with other people's and theirs has your name on it and yours has their name on it, that's how the petri dishes are grouped into, let's say, groups of 10. But this separation actually happens because we go online telepathically with those 10 people. And it is a vibratory resonance where like attracts like, and you end up with people just like yourself. That's why it was not a suggestion, but a warning of what's to come when it said be the change you wish to see in the world. Because that is the change you're going to see in the world, is a bunch of other people that are being just like you are being. And And you're going to be surrounded by people just like yourself. Hence, be the change you wish to see in the world, because whatever you be, you're going to see that change in the world when we get separated into these different petri dishes with others who are like ourselves. But we're being freed from the one big petri dish in this process of disclosure, where they have us on an island prison conceptually, where they tell us there is no afterlife, there is no pre-mortal existence, that's back and front, and there's nothing to the left or right. There's no other aliens or any other life forms that we can see, and we can see for light years in all directions. We're being freed from that island prison. The reason for acclimating us slowly is for our own benefit. The newcomers with the new sheriff in town have no problem overthrowing the current powers that should not be. And the reason they don't just do it is for us, in order that we can slowly acclimate to this new understanding of who we are. That is what the Space Force Defense Minister of Israel said when he announced there's a galactic federation. Trump knows about it. The good news, he says, we've made deals with them to do experiments here, and they've been waiting for the time when we were developed enough that we could understand what space is and what spaceships are. That indicates that our current understanding is not the case, is incomplete and or incorrect. So incorrect that we aren't even capable of understanding what space is and what spaceships are. I thought we knew that since at least the 60s when we went to the moon, right? Wrong. That's why they put a rat and a mouse on the SpaceX launch. 2 of them in a row, Dragon capsules that were supposedly taking people up to the International Space Station. There's only one camera on the whole rocket, and it's pointed back towards the motor. The rocket is thrusting out that way. The camera is here. A rat crawls across the outside of the rocket. Between the camera and the rocket thruster motor, a rat crawls across. Couple weeks later, a mouse crawls across. Same spot. There's no chance that was a coincidence either time. The fact that it happened twice consecutively shows that they are trying to acclimate us, to dislodge us from our preconceived ideas, to get us to question, maybe it's all a lie. So when someone asked me the other day, are you a non-sphere earther? I like the way they put that question. I'm certain about nothing and curious about everything, and they're trying to get the rest of us to be the same. Because whatever you think you're certain about is about to be disintegrated. Your self-image and worldview is about to be disintegrated. Some pieces will be disconnected from others, and you will have to fill in the gaps. Don't be eager to fill in the gaps with answers. It is much easier and much better feeling to go through this with, to be okay with the question, to enjoy the question, to savor the mystery. Once you know how the magic card trick is done, it's no longer magic. It's like, oh, is that it? Is that all there was to it? But until then, the fascination of the mystery, if you can savor that feeling rather than trying to extinguish it, demanding the answer, this can be a real fun process. If you can't, and you must have an answer to every question, that's what most people do. Any unanswered mysteries, the unknown, the unsolved mysteries, get ejected from their worldview. Hold some space in your worldview for the unanswered and the unknown, in order for all the other files within your self-image and worldview to have some room to grow and adjust. So to finish off this analogy of the petri dishes getting separated into groups of 10, who are like-minded people that resonate with one another, that have common principles and priorities. And that above us is a higher level of being, orchestrating the grouping of these petri dishes into groups of 10, and orchestrating taking those petri dishes of 10 people each and grouping 10 of them together into 100. And those who don't, the only petri dishes that are viable at this point are by invitation only. And the way they are grouped together is not by making a list. You announce your list of those that you resonate with and would like to be grouped up with. You announce that, you make your vote telepathically through that vibratory resonance of your inner being. And those that did not get elected into a group, those that did not receive an invitation, as I've said before, it's like talent scouts from the NBA going around to different college basketball teams, looking for potential recruits that they might like to bring on to their NBA professional team. Some college players get multiple offers, invitations to join multiple NBA teams. Some get only 1 or 2 offers, some get 0 offers. The only viable petri dishes at this point are by invitation only. See their secret society. You get tapped into the skulls, right? And anyone who didn't get selected and invited to go online with others who say, yeah, I think you got something, you got the stuff, we could use the talents you have on our team over here. You got the quality of character and substance of your inner being that can add something to our group over here. Because as I've said, in a Type 1 civilization, the only thing you can contribute is to the consciousness, to the emotional IQ and development of consciousness within that society, because they no longer need large numbers of people for farming, for warfare, or for industry. Robotics does it all. And for those that did not receive an invitation to join one of these telepathically online petri dishes, they go online with all the other rejects. So if you receive an invitation, you should probably seriously consider it. Just as a quick mention, Walmart's 6-sided sunbeam logo. Just saying. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I pulled over to finish this video, save myself 7 minutes of yelling, because I need to get some foam in the door here. The wind screeches through there when it's blowing at the right angle. Anyway, because I remembered I have something important I need to say, and I'd rather just say it than try and yell over the noise of the wind. And that's regarding the truck that got hit with the EMF that I filmed, the live plasma fire. That plasma fire had only been going about 5 minutes, judging by how much area had been burned from the epicenters where it seemed to start and spread. They were still small areas, so anywhere the electricity came up and started a fire, it had only spread 5 minutes worth. And the fingers of electricity had popped up in 4 or 5 different spots, but each of those spots had only grown a certain amount. So you can estimate 5 or 10 minutes ago, there was no fire around here. My battery went dead while I was filming that. I said so during the filming of it, that I was going back to the truck to charge the battery. I got in the truck and just rolled and let it charge while I was driving. And about 5 miles down the road, there's a backup. Cars are all backed up. Slow down to 5 or 10 mile an hour, whatever, real slow. And there's a cop here with his lights on. And then a quarter mile down from him is 2 fire engines, maybe another cop and someone else, and a truck, like a semi-truck, that had caught fire. That alone is a coincidence, but it was the fact that the whole corner of the cab was missing. From the front center of the windshield, all the way up and around over to the rear passenger side of the cab was missing. Half of the windshield was missing within 5 minutes. I believe that all happened. There was white, where the firefighters had hit it with the white foam. That stuff was all over the ground beneath the truck. The way the corner of the cab was missing, like 30% of the cab off that front passenger corner was just cut off from the middle of the windshield, clear back to the rear passenger side of the cab was missing. The way that it looks after it's been in a rollover, right? When these trucks roll over, it takes out one corner of the cab that they hit quite often. This truck looked like that, missing one corner of the cab, the front passenger corner of the cab, but it had pulled over on the edge of the road, vertical, it hadn't rolled, and it pulled over under control. It wasn't a wreck. There was no giant structure back there like it was driving under a low overhead sign and hit part of it and wiped out part of the cab. It was a fire that took out 30% of his cab in 5 minutes. My thought is he drove through that EMF field, something locked on, possibly right up there on that corner is where they put their satellite receivers. Some trucks have satellite receivers, and maybe it worked like an antenna and picked up those electromagnetic frequencies and started frying that corner of the cab. My question, I'm about 80 to 90% certain that the truck fire coincided with the live plasma fire. My question is cause and effect. Was the wall of electromagnetic frequencies that started that plasma fire static and just sitting there and the truck drove through it? Or was the EMFs being directed at the truck and he just happened to drive by the spot that I got out and filmed the plasma fire? And he was dragging the dew along with him. Or was it just a sheet or a curtain of electricity that I've filmed or illustrated before is the case that he drove through, and by driving through it, your satellite receiver might act like some sort of an antenna and kind of drag it with you, or the damage was done and it took him 5 miles to figure out my cab's smoking. Oh crap, and get it pulled over. But the fact that 5 miles down the road from that live EMF fire was a truck fire where a corner of the cab was missing. Like when you see a truck that's been in a rollover, but it had pulled over to the side, under control, perfectly on the side of the road, on the shoulder, all the way over the line, everything, like he pulled it over under control. All the white stuff beneath the truck that the firefighters had sprayed on there. That tells me that truck was in the EMF fire. So I'm going to just leave that at that, let you make of it what you will, and get back to the petri dishes we're talking about here. And I only got a couple minutes left on this video, but a subject I'd like to talk about is emotional mind control, and have quite a few examples of that. We've all heard of fear-based mind control. Most of the emotions around mind control are based on fear because there's only 2 primary emotions, love and fear. So all these other emotions are derivatives of fear, like shame and guilt and anger and pride, etc. Emotion-based mind control is an endless rabbit hole that's dishing up some pretty good understandings to me about a lot of things. First, I want to talk about those petri dishes and how the separation happens. Because right now, it's been cultivated so far that we have black belts and white belts in the same petri dish, in the same arena. And the black belts don't grow and develop and flourish and thrive when they're competing against white belts. And white belts don't grow and learn when they're competing against black belts. And within this arena where we have such a large spectrum of people who have such a wide range of growth and development mile markers of their inner being, of their character, the separation will be better for both. Once the black belts are in with black belts, they can then begin competing and honing their skills and raising their performance records through that distillation process that happens when you're being contrasted or when you're competing with people of your own rank. Likewise with the white belts, because in this current environment of this petri dish, they don't feel competent. They feel inferior and inadequate. And it discourages them from trying to excel because they cannot compete. So once they are in an arena with those of their own levels of competence, they then feel more adequate and more capable of succeeding. And thus they put forth greater effort because they see the potential for success. I was going to make some parallels here between communism and capitalism, because at the end of capitalism there is no competition, just like in communism, so no one tries to compete with Walmart and McDonald's anyway, but that's probably a separate subject. In the cultural consciousness petri dish that we're in, that's getting separated and filtered, there's more than one cut to the harvest, just like you got a spring cut and a second, and if it's a real bounty bumper crop, you get a third cut from the harvest. There's more than just white belt and black belt. There's many varying degrees in between of those who you will resonate with, or groups that will be put into those that are like themselves. And the closeout muse message is David Gray, say hello, wave goodbye. Take a look in my face for the last time. I never knew you. You never knew me. Say hello. Goodbye. Say hello and wave goodbye. Here's the water references. We were born before the waves. Who are we to understand? We were born before the waves. Say goodbye. Through the rain, hail, sleet, and snow. Say goodbye. Get on the train, and say goodbye. Say goodbye. In the wind and the rain now, darling, say goodbye. In the wind and the rain now, darling. It resonated with me earlier as a reference to that final scene where some of us say hello and wave goodbye all in one cycle. And they're taking Mother Nature's silver seed to a new home in the sun as this separation of the petri dish happens. I never knew you, is what it said in the Bible, will be told to many who didn't connect with the Spirit. And so that'll have to transition into the emotional mind control video upcoming.